Hi everyone, I'm Daisy Rocha and this is what's happening in Brazil. We'll start by updating you on the latest news from the country. During his trip to Mexico, Lula attended the new president's ceremony. He also criticized the United Nations for failing to promote dialogue between Israel, Lebanon, and Iran, accusing Tel Aviv of only knowing how to kill. This week, the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that the government is following the situation with grave concern. This week, the Brazilian government sent an Air Force plane to return the first Brazilian nationals stranded in Lebanon. There is more than 20,000 Brazilians in the Middle East country, and around 3,000 of them already expressed their will to go back to Brazil, in what it looks like will be a long process, as each flight can take around 200 people at the time. 6 years after the high-profile murder of Councilwoman Marielle Franco and her driver Anderson Gomes in Rio de Janeiro, the first person is convicted for the crime. The owner of a junkyard used to get rid of the car of the crime was sentenced to 5 years. The two other suspects will face a jury later this year. A recent study from the Brazilian Economic Research Institute has found that incorporating family farming products into school meals boosts students' performances. This initiative, backed by a 2009 law, directly links to a better Portuguese language and math grades. The research highlights that while many factors influence public school performance, nutrition in school meals play a crucial role. September 28 marks the struggle for the decriminalization and legalization of abortion in Latin America and the Caribbean. In Brazil, the debate continues, driven by feminist and human rights movements to expand access to safe abortion for all women. This is what we watch now in our story of the week.
The abortion ban is a reality that affects the lives of all women, but it harms especially the less privileged of them. According to data from the 2021 National Abortion Survey, Black Brazilian girls and women are 46% more likely to have an abortion than white women. By the age of 40, 1 out of 5 Black women have terminated their pregnancy once or twice, while the proportion among white women is 1 out of 7.
Women who have more financial resources can access an abortion procedure in clinics with a bit more security. The most vulnerable women in Brazil can't access abortion procedures, which is why it's essential that we not only decriminalize it, but also legalize it, because the majority of the Brazilian population needs the country's public health system to access health rights and sexual and reproductive rights.
In order to think about this issue, September 28th is the day to fight for the decriminalization and legalization of abortion. The date was established during the 5th Latin America and Caribbean Feminist Meeting held in Argentina in 1990.
The whole of Latin America had an extremely conservative colonization process with a fundamentalist bias that was perpetuated over the centuries. But countries that faced a colonization process even more cruel than Brazil when looking at women, such as Mexico and Bolivia, which were colonized by Spain, have more progressive debates on the issue of a secular state, on legislation that guarantees access to health care for the entire population, and consequently, for women, we are seeing attacks take place.
In Brazil, abortion is allowed in 3 situations: rape, risk to the woman's life, and anencephaly of the fetus. In all 3 cases, the procedure must be offered free of charge by Brazil's public health system, and there is no gestational time limit for the procedure to be carried out. Now, the struggle of women's movements is for every woman to have the right to terminate her pregnancy.
A legalização ela não vai passar
Legalization is not going to go through a process of decriminalization without an order and a rule. On the contrary, legalization needs to be permeated by regulations within the laws determining practices that will make it easier to access the law on the right to abortion.
Então, discutir a descriminalização das mulheres.
Discussing the decriminalization of women and consequently the legalization of abortion is an agenda that has been made very difficult by disinformation and the fundamentalist power project that exists in the country today. We must make people understand that women have the right not only to decide about their bodies, but also not to be influenced by the religious fundamentalism of other people or other sectors. Women need to have access to this right, regardless of their social class.
On September 22nd, it was 1 year since former Supreme Court Justice WHIB voted in favor of decriminalizing abortion up to 12 weeks. So far, the case has not advanced in the court. In the National Congress, the agenda seems to be going backward even further. In June 2024, the country was taken over by demonstrations against Bill 1904, known as the Rape Bill, which equates abortion over 22 weeks of pregnancy with the crime of homicide, even in cases currently allowed by law.
In this week's Culture Talk, you will learn about a traditional culture in the Amazon, where colorful typography full of personality adorns boats. That's the art of the so-called abridores de letras, which means letter openers in a rough translation. They are artists who are now part of the Letras que Flutuam Institute, the first in Brazil dedicated to riverside culture.
With more than 1,700 rivers, river transportation is the main way to carry goods and people to and from Amazonian communities. Over the years, river dwellers have started to name their boats with simple letters, which have become increasingly elaborate, colorful, and diverse. This has given rise to a traditional culture and also a profession known as letter openers, who are now printing not only boats. The first institute in Brazil dedicated to riverside culture, Letras que Flutuam, was created in Belém to strengthen the knowledge of these popular artists.
The opening of letters like carimbó and tacacá is part of riverside culture, which is the core of Amazonian culture. Therefore, it also needs to be defended and valued, especially amid the preparations for COP30. People must understand that if this value, if this knowledge lends Amazonian significance and cultural significance to companies, initiatives, and governments, the holders of this knowledge should benefit from it.
The Institute's results are based on 15 years of research and mapping of letter openers in the Amazon. More than 70 artists have been found, and 30 of them are associated with the project and are part of its board, one of the challenges of which is to expand the mapping and build ways of preserving and strengthening this knowledge.
Trazer outros saberes associados, outras atividades.
We also want to bring in other associated knowledge and activities related to the art of opening letters to bring in women and young people. We know that, as time passes by, it's inevitable that wooden boats will disappear because metal boats are faster, more efficient, and less expensive. So we're going to look for other public policies that value this knowledge so that they can continue practicing it regardless of naval technology.
Each boat has its own identity, and each letter opener has a different style. This is how the boats color the rivers with diversity.
Da minha família mesmo, ninguém.
Nobody in my family was a painter. My father was a fisherman. My mother worked as a seamstress. And I was the only one who got into art. I always did small letters, and then I moved on to paint them on large canoes, big boats, and even ships, drawing landscapes inside them.
Lima has been working with the Letras que Flutuam project since 2004 and is now an advisor to the Institute.
Eu quero futuro para todos.
I want a future for everyone. For example, my son and others who will come. They see that art, and I believe that they can enter the institute too. It's a progress for them, a way to be good professionals.
The Ecomuseu da Amazônia in the city of Belém and part of the Escola Bosque Foundation is one of the institute's partners and took art students to a workshop with the letter openers themselves.
The feelings these letters raised end up triggering our emotional memory for the configuration of our Amazonian identity.
The challenge of Letras que Flutuam is to boost women and young people to preserve this culture, and the art is already enchanting many eyes.
Wherever we go, we see the glow of the letters on the boats. The Letras que Flutuam has come to improve our training in boat painting as well.
Did you like the show? So hit the like button and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive notifications. We'll see you next week.